This is The Artful Painter, art lessons for artists, collectors, and people who love arts. Bear with me just one moment here. I'm checking my math. I started the Artful Painter podcast back in 2018. We're in 2026, so my old gray cell says that was 8 years ago, but we will just double check my mathing. Let me use my calculator. Let's see, 2026 minus 2018 equals 8 years. I love it when the calculator agrees with the calculator in my old gray cells. That doesn't happen very often, so I'm happy. But anyway, it's been about 8 years since I started publishing the Artful Painter podcast. Now, one of the most satisfying things about the podcast has been receiving listener feedback. And one of the earliest listeners to provide feedback and to support the show financially was a doctor, Dr. Debbie Mueller. Well, I just found out that Debbie has retired as a full-time doctor. So she's retired her medical practice and she has gone into making art full-time. And I thought, wow, that's a story I've got to hear. I want to know what her experience is right now during the transition from going from full-time medical practice to full-time artist. So I'm going to get right into it. I want to introduce you to Debbie Mueller, the artist. My name is Carl Olson, and this is The Artful Painter, albeit 8 years later. Debbie, I'm long past overdue to have you on The Artful Painter. You were one of the first of my followers of the podcast. You were one of my supporters of the podcast very early in its history. And I have, with much interest, followed the development of you as an artist. So it is with great pleasure that I get to finally have you on The Artful Painter. Welcome.
Thank you. I am so honored and so happy to be here. I love your podcast. I have listened to every episode. And like I said, it's just a huge honor for me to be your next guest.
Well, tell me, where are you based?
So I'm in Durham, New Hampshire. And I will share with you, we're recording this on April 7th, and it is snowing heavily here. We moved here in 2005 from Connecticut. So I've been in New England all of my adult life anyway. It's a beautiful area. We're close to the water, close to the mountains. It's lovely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think my wife and I, the last time we were in the New England states, I think it was 2014, 2015. And it was a road trip with no itinerary. And we would just say, let's go. I wonder where if we go, if we turn left or if we go right.
Yeah.
So we drove through Vermont and New Hampshire and Maine. You are in a beautiful place.
Yeah, I feel really lucky to be here. A lot of inspiration, for sure.
So Debbie, you've taken a very interesting route to art, which I think is a lot of us do. I came into it late in my life.
Yeah.
You just recently retired as a doctor.
Yeah, a few months ago.
How does that feel?
It's been amazing. I definitely, so I have to say, like, I didn't leave medicine because I was burned out or unhappy. I left a job that I absolutely loved, but I was in a position in the last year that I had worked, I had to say no to a bunch of art opportunities that had come up that involved travel because I just didn't have enough time off. And so with the blessing of our financial planner, she said, this is a time that you could make a transition to being a full-time artist. So I left on a high. I left, loving what I did, enjoying my patients, enjoying my coworkers tremendously, not missing an hour commute each way, but that was really the only downside to that job. It is difficult and different to be mostly solitary. As I'm an OB-GYN, and so I saw typically 15, 20 patients a day and loved having those conversations. And, now mostly I'm in my home. My studio's in my home. And so I'm mostly home. I can go days and days without getting in my car. So it's a change, but I'm doing things to make sure that I'm seeing people, I'm seeing friends, and creating community. There's a really vibrant visual art community here on the seacoast of New Hampshire in this area. And I just we tried to do this 5 years, 6 years ago, whatever it was, and we had a pandemic instead. But just put together like a monthly gathering of artists. We had our first meeting a few weeks ago, and it was awesome. So I'll have that to look forward to.
What was the name of the group?
Well, I don't think we have an official name yet, but it made me think of sort of like the Salon of Paris, where, you'd have Gertrude Stein, and, I'm going to mess up with all the names of the people, but these famous artists all coming together to, commune and drink and eat and share ideas. And I wanted to sort of recreate that here, and it's happening. So I'm really glad about that.
So the key is you took the initiative to step out and to meet people and to organize things where there could be some social interaction.
Yeah, I did. Because it doesn't happen by accident, and it doesn't happen as much anymore. Just, I think COVID made us all sort of forget how to be together in a way. It changed things. So yeah, I was very intentional about that.
I imagine history books will eventually talk about things that we're still just discovering about the side effects of a pandemic that half the population thought was a hoax. And I know it did me in. It's the reason I moved. It was the trigger of why I moved. The isolation was just, it was terrible.
Humans are not meant to be alone. Like, we live longer, we live happier when we're together. And so I understand that that's part of my new job in a way, that to create community and foster that and make sure that seeing people, I just have to, it's not built into my day anymore. I have to make that happen.
Was there a genesis of when you got interested in art?
It was quite by accident. So I tell this story because there's so many people in this world that are like, oh, I don't have any artistic talent. I can't draw for beans. And, I don't have that in me. And I truly would have said exactly the same thing. But just about 10 years ago, we were visiting my parents, who were spending the winter in Sarasota. My mom had always been a hobby artist. My dad was more of a crafts person. And I totally knew that I took after my dad. I just didn't believe I had anything artistic in me. And it was raining one day. Everybody was bored and grumpy. And my mother said, I have some paint. Do you want to paint? And my first thought was actually to say no. I really wasn't interested. But I truly had nothing better to do. So I said, okay, very reluctantly. And I pulled out a photo. She had some acrylic paint. And for about an hour, I painted, and I made a really bad painting. I mean, I'm just here to tell you it was awful. But I loved the way I felt while I was doing it. And the next day, I sort of sheepishly said, do you think we could do it again? So when I came home from that trip, I bought paint and started copying photos. And I had no idea what I was doing. And so after a couple months, I found a local class, and then it kind of all went from there. It probably wasn't 4 or 5 months before I knew that this was what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, and do it with the same sort of passion and energy and focus that I had put into my medical career. So that was how it began.
Nice. Now, do you still have that first painting?
Oh, yeah. It's right in the other room, hanging on the wall. Yeah.
It's on the wall. Yeah. I'm proud of you.
It's still bad. I like to show it to people, because like I said, people think like, oh, I could never do that. And they can't. It's like, no, you can. You can. It is just a learned skill. So It is very doable.
I still have mine. It's right over here. I almost threw it
There
away
you go.
though, so I wasn't as noble as you.
Oh, no, no,
But my
no.
wife
Don't throw
saved
it
it from
away.
the trash. She framed it,
That's,
so
she's
I have
smart.
it.
She's
Worst
smart.
painting
Yeah.
ever. But
No, best painting ever because it sent you on that road. So
that's
yeah,
true.
truly
That's
best
true.
best painting ever. Where it's been a challenge for me is that I didn't know how to draw. And that's sort of my Achilles heel still. I'm still looking at paintings and going, oh, you idiot, the roof's not like angled that way, or the perspective's off, or your ellipse is like, I'm learning ways to self-correct. And so I know my work is getting better. But if I make mistakes in general, it's drawing. It's hard. It's hard stuff.
I would have never guessed that you would say that because a lot of your subject matter is, well, you have your still lifes, which have a lot of complex lines and shapes. You have your architecture, which if it's off, it will look off, and it doesn't.
I take advantage of tools. So the first tool that I use a lot is a mirror and a grid. So I start with a grid in almost all of my paintings. And so I use my camera as a tool to make that grid from the point of view that I want. I use it to help me with cropping and just design. So my first step would be to do a drawing using thinned paint. And then before I move on, I take my mirror and I look at it, or sometimes I'll take a photo and reverse it, same kind of thing. It's like your eye seeing it for the first time, and I'll look for mistakes there. And then invariably I don't catch them all. And then I do the same thing again after I've painted. And I look either in the mirror or by reversing or both and fix things at that point. So it's just, you talk to so many artists and they'll be the ones to tell you like, oh, when I was a kid, I was always drawing, I was always sketching, I was always copying. And I just never, ever, ever did those things. So I started drawing 10 years ago. So it's getting better. I mean, I'm getting better, but I have to say, sometimes I feel a little guilty about still relying on those tools that I can't just sort of look at a scene and sketch it perfectly. I mean, I probably could, not perfectly, but reasonably well, but it would take a long time. And I'm an impatient person, so I would rather use those tools and help me along the way and then get to the painting, to the fun part.
I think one of the things that's important about that is it sounds like you have a deep sense of self-awareness when it comes to your skills and what you're trying to do with painting. And I think that's what makes a painter get even better, is having that self-awareness.
Yeah, I think one of the things we all have to learn as painters is self-critique without being overly critical, right? There's that fine line. So many people are like, it's terrible, I made a horrible painting, I'm going to throw it out. And that doesn't help you grow. You really have to learn to be able to look at what you've done, a work in progress, or even once you think it's done, and say, you know, is it done? Are there things that are not reading the right way? And then, of course, avoiding overworking it too. I mean, I've been guilty as that, as I'm sure everybody has, just trying to get that one spot perfect. And then you look at it and it's like, oh, it's just a mess. But
Yeah, I get it. I feel that way too. I probably do swing a little more to the heavy self-critique. I'm not where I want to be. And
yeah,
I see what I want to do, and then when in the execution, it's not quite where I want it to be. So I just keep doing it. I keep doing it. I did a series not too long ago, painted 10 little paintings of the same subject.
mhm,
I figured, well,
yeah,
practice scales, practice drawing,
yeah.
painting, and see what happens. But yeah,
Did they get better as you went on in that series? Do you feel like they improved? Uh,
some did, and
yeah,
then some were overcorrected. So I don't.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a surprising finding. I thought each one would be progressively better. That wasn't the
yeah,
case. I had the first one, which was
yeah.
okay. The second one was really bad, but I left it.
Oh,
The third one was kind of in between. The fourth one was,
yeah,
that okay, I'm getting
yeah.
there.
You needed to stop there, Carl.
Just stop. But I did 9 of
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
I was going to do 10, but they wouldn't lay out nicely on a table.
Oh, on a grid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nine
Yeah.
makes a nice grid. Yeah. Well, one of the things that's been really good, I think, and I recommend it to so many people, is doing. So for me, it was the Strata Easel Challenge, and so for people that aren't familiar with it, the Strata Easel Company, which is owned by Brian Mark Taylor, who's an amazing artist in and of himself, started this challenge. They run it twice a year in September and January. And artists need to either draw or paint from life, big underline, every day for the month, and then post their work. You don't have to finish a painting every day. I do. It's just the challenge that I've given to myself. But boy, that's been a game changer for me. I mean, first of all, it's the whole reason I'm a still life painter. I hadn't done any still life before I did my first Strata challenge. And it made me fall in love with painting from life. And it made me fall in love with what still life could be, which previously I had always thought of being like dusty wine bottles and old grapes and just, not at all interesting. So the fact that I've sort of landed there in a large part is very much due to that. But for sure, your skills will advance by doing a painting every day. And, it's a great opportunity too to focus on just maybe one thing, like maybe you're going to use a limited palette all month. And I did that a few times where I called it my orphan color limited palette. And I pulled out like all the, manganese blue and Terra rose and like all these like weird colors that you might not typically use, and say, what if I put these three together with white and come up with kind of a fun painting? And after doing that for a month, it made me absolutely fearless about a limited palette. Like now I know I may not be able to make every color, but I can always make a painting. And so it's just a great thing. Or maybe you think about edges, or maybe I know a few artists that paint the same subject all month long and do it a different way each day. So there's so many ways to play with it, but it absolutely will help people grow as artists.
It would be like a musician who only played in C major. You go to different scales, so your color palette varied, and you had different results. How many times did you do that Strata challenge?
I think I've done it 8 times now. I only do it in January. I only do it in January. I know some people who do it twice a year, every year. I mean, there's like absolute champions out there. But January here is a long, cold, dark month, and so it's been really nice. It gives me something to look forward to, and it's a great feeling to have a body of work at the end of the first month of a year and be able to look at that and feel good about that. And then for me, it's been fodder for what do I want to explore further. So like, for instance, there's a painting behind me of the post the painting, and so I had done a small version of, exactly. I had done a smaller version of that in the Strata challenge, and then decided to make it into a larger painting. So it's a good way to explore themes or things that you want to come back to larger.
I think one of the things I had to overcome was the fact that I felt like each painting had to be a masterpiece, but you can't have a masterpiece or a good performance with just one. You've got to do it over and over again until you get there.
Yeah. I mean, if I do 31 paintings in the month, I'm really happy if a couple of them seem really strong to me. And there's always one clunker. I mean, there's always one that you just want to hide away, but the rules are you have to post it. And so when I do the clunker, I'm sort of like, oh, good, I got that one out of the way. Like, I don't have to paint that one again. So, but, people have asked me, like, how has being a physician informed your work as an artist? And I do think, like, after truly dealing with life and death decisions, it's just a bad painting. It just doesn't compare in terms of magnitude with what I've dealt with in my life as a physician. And so if I make a bad painting, oh well. And I'll tell you, it feels really great to scrape one or to paint over it and make it into something new again. It's a very kind of liberating feeling. And so that's okay too.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. I was going to ask you that, if there was any influence or impact from being a physician to how did it shape or form your approach to art?
I do think it's also both professions are very much right side, left side of the brain. There's this, huge analytical piece, like, if you're trying to make a diagnosis or understand how to treat someone or calculate a medication dose or whatever, there's a lot that's analytical. But for me, there was a lot that was more emotional and, this ability to connect to people who are sometimes in their most vulnerable place and maybe revealing things to me that they had never told anybody, felt shame about, felt, just the conversations that I would be privileged to have with people, definitely were very, very emotional. And so art is the same way, or, lighter, darker, warmer, cooler. Is my drawing correct? All that analytical side. But then there's ultimately this piece of, like, how do I want this painting to feel? How am I going to manipulate it so that the viewer has an experience that gives them a moment of nostalgia or emotion or a recollection that hits home. And so I do think that they have that in common.
Yeah, I think that empathy is what I'm hearing. You must have been and are a very empathetic person to your patients, the people that you talk to, your friends. You seem like a person that would be very empathetic, and that adds depth to the emotional response to what we create and what we share.
I think people's personalities come through in their work, and I just don't think you can avoid it. It's funny because from maybe just a year or two after I started painting, people would say, "Oh, your paintings make me think of Edward Hopper." And I was drawn to this sense of illumination. I mean, I think that's what they were keying in on. But when I look at his work, and I love a lot of his work, I've used a lot of it, like I've been doing a lot of art books. In fact, I have one over there.
Nice.
A lot of art books in still life series, and I'm always going back to his work. But I think there's a big difference. His work, people talk about how lonely it feels and desolate and isolated and sad. And my work doesn't feel that way because that's not who I am. So I really do think that we can't really avoid our personalities coming through in what we do.
Yeah, there's a certain darkness to Hopper's work. I mean, there's some, you create stories. I mean, of course, we always think of Nighthawk. What is the conversation that's going on in that? But there's a certain darkness to his paintings. Whereas with yours, I feel like I'm stepping into, just like the painting that's behind you. And I know that folks that are listening can't see it, but I'll put a picture of it in the show notes. But it's an invitation to go to a destination. There is a difference in your paintings, that's for sure.
I don't put a lot of figures in my paintings. He obviously includes a lot, and they always look, I think, sad and somewhat awkward, but it's not my favorite aspect of his work. And I've put figures in a few, but I always feel like if you put a figure in, the painting becomes about that person's experience and that person's perspective. Whereas if there's no figure, it's all about the viewer. The viewer then takes ownership of that vista, of that experience of viewing. I think that's part of why I like that sort of top-down view that I use for a lot of my still life paintings. If you look at a traditional still life painting that, say, was at eye level on a shelf or something, someone could be standing to the right of you, someone could be standing to the left of you, and you all end up sharing that experience or that view. But if you're looking down on something, it becomes your own personal story, your own personal narrative, that's your experience. Nobody else can really see that because you're right over it. And so I think that's why I'm drawn to that as well.
You developed the interest in painting, you said, about 10 years ago. So did you have any guidance or training to help you shape your skills as a painter?
Oh, absolutely. And have continued. So, at the very beginning, I found just a local introduction to painting class and did that. And then I was able to find instruction with some local artists that were, at a little bit of a still introductory, but, professional artists that were teaching and that sort of thing. And then I discovered workshops. Oh my gosh, like summer camp for grown-ups. Like what fun to go someplace beautiful, learn to paint, be with other artists, talk about art. That is just so much fun. And so my first workshop was on Monhegan. I think of it almost as my painting birthplace, and I've gone back there almost every year since. But I did a number of workshops. I would say that some of the people that had a really big impact was, first of all, Tim Horn. He's such an exceptional painter, and he's a really, really good teacher. And so I took several workshops with him, and then I worked with him for about a year via Skype. It was pre-Zoom to sort of develop skills. And then the other person that I worked with just until recently is Sarah Sedgwick, who is just a brilliant still life painter and an exceptional teacher. And she has a mentoring program. And I did that for a number of years. And she really, she's got such a good eye in terms of offering critiques. And I really, really learned a lot through her. And I continue to keep my eye out. I would like to up my landscape painting game a little bit. So in the next couple of years, I will try to find a good landscape workshop from someone who I want to learn from, and obviously someplace that I also want to go and visit. Kind of two birds, one stone. But yeah, I think I can't imagine a time where I'll ever say, like, I'm done learning. We're always learning. And oftentimes it's really helpful to have someone's expertise that's different.
I think that's important. I know just being here where I live now, I have close access to at least two artists that I have three artists that I have deep respect for, and they've been very helpful.
Yeah.
Offering suggestions. I mean, it's not a workshop. We're just friends having coffee, but, want to come over and say, well, this painting, you could do this or that. And that's really helpful. And it's without the pressure of being around a bunch of people hearing that.
Everybody's different about that. In that regard, I tend to have a thick skin. I don't mind being in a workshop setting and having someone say, this is not working in your painting. I mean, we're all there to learn. But I definitely recognize, I started teaching maybe 2 years ago now, a year and a half, 2 years ago. So I'm teaching a bunch of workshops now too. And so I'm very aware that people have different learning styles and different emotional responses to that sort of thing. And you have to be really careful. I mean, we've all heard these horror stories, right, of artists whose soul was crushed by a teacher who, this is awful, or scraping something out, or I never want to be that teacher. You really have to find that compassion to be able to help somebody without really knocking them down.
I had one of those experiences. I think I've mentioned it on the show before, where I wanted to be a trumpet player, and I was taking lessons from one of the trumpeters of the Atlanta Symphony
I remember
Orchestra.
this.
Yeah, he just told me I had no talent. Went home, sold it, never did it again.
It's devastating.
So I
It's a
don't like
crime.
being in public. With that, I have to do it almost privately to overcome that insecurity that I have. So I'm exposing my soul to the world, but here you go.
That's okay. I mean, we all, you talk about a thick skin. So, rejection is a part of what we do, and it's hard, and some are harder than others, and yet you still have to pick up and 24-hour pity party and then move on, and that is
I throw a good one.
One of the bigger challenges. Yeah. The last one involved limoncello cake. It was delicious.
That sounds
helpful.
good.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. How did that come about?
Well, okay, so bearing my soul. So, on the one hand, I'm really excited. So I've been involved in Oil Painters of America for, quite a few years now. And I've been fortunate enough to have enough acceptances into their national and regional shows that I earned signature status this year. And I feel extremely proud of that. I'm just, it like this and graduating medical school are like the two things that are on a par with each other. And so I'm planning on going out to Steamboat Springs, Colorado to go to the Oil Painters of America National Convention this year. And I thought it would be so awesome to have a painting accepted into that national exhibition. And my painting was declined, rejected, whatever word you want to use. I did not get into that show. And that was the one I really, was excited about for this year. And so that brought about the limoncello cake. And then I got a couple of other rejections in the same week. And those were more like, oh, that's disappointing. And then move on. Like that was more, but the OPA one stung. I'll keep applying. I'll get in again someday. Like it's not going to knock me down for good, but I was, I really wanted that. So. Yeah.
Well, you learn from these, right? There's a lot of subjectivity to these things, too.
I don't know if you've ever seen the shows. I mean, the quality of the work is just exceptional. So it's not like I would never say they made a bad choice. I am sure that the work that they accepted is absolutely amazing. And I just understand that I have to submit better work, that I have to work harder. And I will. So, yeah.
I imagine if they had 250 submissions and they're going to display 100, those 250 submissions were probably pretty good.
I think they get thousands of submissions and they probably take 150 or 200.
Ooh.
And I've always known that they could probably double the size of the show, and that there'd be at least another same number that are of adequate quality that could have been into. And so, ultimately there's something subjective, but like I said, I'm sure that the work is going to be just absolutely inspiring. It always is.
When is that show?
That is at the end of May, right after Memorial Day. Yeah. So.
That's about 3 hours from me. I may have to swing up there and see that.
Oh, you should take a drive. Yeah. Do a little overnight. Yeah.
Have you ever been to Colorado?
Yeah, years and years ago, I skied out there, but I went to Vail for a medical conference, but I haven't been back in many, many years. So I'm looking forward to it. I told them I would help set up the still life room, but I've got to get outside and paint. Like I have never painted mountains like that. I mean, I know that you've talked about how much green there is in Georgia, and there's just about that much green in New Hampshire. There are almost no places where there are these like long vistas of where you see aerial perspective. There's very few places here where you see that. Mostly you just see green. And so unless you're at the ocean, and then you see green and blue. But so I'm really excited to just be in a completely different landscape and hopefully get outside a bit to paint plein air.
It is inspiring to do that. Now, I've tempered a lot of my belly aching over green in Georgia and places like that. I figured, well, that was the immaturity in me as an artist. So I'm trying to grow up a little bit.
There you go.
And I think, your art is really proof of that, where the subject matter that you choose. I suppose you can make a painting anywhere if you look close enough.
Yeah.
Or hard
I
enough.
do believe that. Yeah.
Or with feeling enough, other than contempt. And sometimes that's what I had to do, is overcome the contempt, because I was, So, yeah. Well, I hope you enjoy that. Do you do outdoor painting a good bit?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love painting from life. I really do. And I think that's why I like the still life so much, because not only can I paint from life, but it doesn't change after 2 hours, and I can move things where I want them, and that sort of thing. Plein air painting is so challenging. I mean, my very first plein air painting, I lugged my full-size French easel out into Portsmouth and dragged it, far from my car. I was such a newbie. And I set it up, and I decided I was going to paint this view from what's called Pierce Island. It's part of Portsmouth. And there was this island in the middle of the water, and a bridge, and a house beyond it. And I looked up at one point, and the island was gone. Like, the tide had come in, and I didn't realize it was tidal. And so I'm looking at this painting going, all right, now what do I do? There's no more island. I had no more information. So, I really do enjoy plein air. Increasingly, I'm thinking of them as studies more than finished paintings. I mean, some of them are good enough to be able to call finished, but my goal is really just to, sort of have that full sensory experience of being in a place, hearing it, seeing it, tasting it, remembering the temperature and the wind and who I was with, and capturing that in paint. So I talked about Monhegan. I mean, painting there is just one of my absolute favorite things to do. Now, I go back every summer with a group of friends, and we paint, and just, 3-4 paintings sometimes a day. And the amazing thing about being there is it's very, I don't know if people know about Monhegan. So it's this tiny
tell
island.
Me a little bit
I
about
think
it.
So it's 10 miles off the coast of Maine. It's about 1.5 miles long and maybe 3/4 of a mile wide. And there's no pavement. The only vehicles on the island are the trucks that are owned by the businesses, the inns and businesses that are on the island, and they have to bring them there by a special boat. You can get to it by ferry, but there's no vehicles allowed on the ferry. And so it's completely walkable. The mainland side of the island has a harbor where the ferry comes in, and fishing boats are there, and there's a little beach for swimming. And then the ocean side of the island are these tall 200-foot cliffs that are just spectacular, with the surf breaking at the bottom. And so there's a network of trails. So hikers go there, birders go there. And for painters, it has hardly changed in the last, 150 years. And so you can find paintings by Edward Hopper, Rockwell Kent, the Wyeths. Jamie Wyeth actually has a home on the island and spends time there. So many different, just exceptional artists that have painted it. And you look at their work and you're like, yep, I was on that spot. I stood right there. And so you truly feel like you are in the footsteps of your idols and your painting heroes when you go there and make these paintings.
Have you ever been to the Olson house?
Yeah, in Cushing.
Yeah.
Yes. Any
Sorry,
relation?
that was not an ego thing. It's not my house.
So after taking a workshop in Rockland, Rockland, Maine, I decided to go see it, and it was almost a spiritual experience, I have to tell you. I drove down there. I guess it's been open at times for visitors, but it was completely closed up. And so I could look through the windows and just sort of see these empty rooms, which felt like they were moving to see them empty. There was a very old couple, they had to be in their 90s, that were there when I first arrived, and they were picking up apples that had fallen from the orchard right outside the house. And I just wondered, like, they must have known, like, Andrew Wyatt. I mean, they were like almost contemporaries probably. And so, it just made me wonder about them. And then I wandered down into the field from where he had painted Christina's World. And at the base of that, close to the water, is a graveyard, and that's where he's buried. And so I just really spent some time there looking at the gravestones, the Olson family and the Wyatts, and looking back up towards the house, which looks exactly the same. And then I came home and I did a painting. I mean, it included his gravestone and then the house in the background and sort of the same view. And it was more just, again, to mark that memory for me. It wasn't that I thought anyone would ever want that. But it really gave me a sense of how honest he was in his work, how personal it was, and how important that is to have that integrity in what you do. So yeah, it was powerful. I recommend people visit.
My wife and I visited it many years ago, and we found it much the way you did. The only difference is there was a great big horse standing right there at the entrance of the house. So I got pictures of that horse next to the house. But we did the same thing, looking in the windows and walking the field and the graveyard and all that. Well, you've come a long ways in 10 years with painting. So I just saw that you were in American Art Collector magazine.
No, I have been published before. I've had features in that magazine. I've had some paintings in Plein Air and Fine Art Connoisseur as well. So yeah, it's exciting.
Well, I'm excited for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Some like just amazing things have happened. I always tell people no one's more surprised about this than me. Like I still like part of it's just surprise, and there's a little bit of imposter syndrome, of course. I guess we all have it. I'm learning that everybody goes through it. And it's like, oh, someone made a mistake. It's just me. But yeah, some really, really wonderful things are happening. Actually, from seeing there was a still life story in American Art Collector in January, and the artistic director of the Quinlan Visual Arts Center in Gainesville, Georgia, saw that and contacted me, and I'm going to be doing a solo exhibition there in the summer. So I'll head down
Nice.
there and
Yeah.
have a show and teach a workshop and do an artist talk, and so good things happen from this kind of publicity. I mean, of course, there's a piece of ego for all of us too. It feels lovely to see your work in print, but then opportunities come, and that it builds, experiences, builds your network, and gives you a chance to see new parts of the world. And it's just all been truly lovely.
Well, I'm happy for you. I really am. I just think this is amazing. It's been fun following your story. It's been inspiring to me.
Thank you. I want people to know, like, it is never too late. Like, people should always feel like if there's something they want to try, that they go ahead and do it.
When you go, are you going to go to the exhibit in Georgia?
Yeah, I'm going to teach a workshop there.
You're going to teach a workshop. So what will the workshop be about?
I'll do a still life workshop. So when I talked a little bit about process earlier, but because what I found as a newer painter. It was sort of like learning how to ski. You know, they tell you 17 different things to keep your mind on and to make sure you're doing. And of course, you can't keep them all in your head at the same time. And so my process when I paint is to really focus on one thing at a time. So first I think about design, and I never design on the canvas. I do all the work through photography. Not so much like Photoshop. I'm not smart enough to use Photoshop, but I set up a still life. I take a picture, I decide what's working and what's not, and then I change something, and then I take another picture, and I just keep working in that way. Then I focus on drawing, and like I said, I'll draw a grid and do a drawing on the panel. Then I think about values, and so I'll use that same, usually transparent red oxide, to denote the values in my painting, so that I have sort of a guide map to follow. Then I think about color, and so I don't touch my painting, but I pre-mix my color, and I do sort of the light and shadow shade of all of the major shapes that I'm painting. After I mix, then I'm thinking about brushwork. And so then I'm applying paint and being thoughtful about how I apply it. And then I take a beat at the end to really think about edges, because edges, I think, are what make the biggest difference in terms of sort of elevating a painting. And if you don't think about them, most edges go down hard, and it's just not as interesting an experience to look at a painting with all hard edges. So I take that time to then just think about my edge work. So I break that process down for students. And so they do a still life painting the first day that I've sort of set up for them. And we go through all of that in a PowerPoint too. And then the second day, they do their own composition with objects that we'll supply. And then they'll create a painting from beginning to end on that second day. And we'll do a little critique at the end. But using that kind of like monotasking instead of multitasking, it's sort of like, one thing at a time.
Yeah, I can't multitask at all. So
yeah, it's asking too much of people, really, to say like, okay, paint that thing that you see, and to be thinking that someone, I mean, I don't think I could think about all of those things at the same time. And so it's just been a good process for me.
I think your students will benefit from the lessons that you share with them there.
I hope so. Yeah. And of course, we do it with still life, so I can paint from life, but it can be done for landscape, for portraiture. It can be used for any subject.
Exactly. I hope while you're down there that you might have enough time to go to the booth, Western Art Museum. I know its focus is Western art.
Is that in the same community?
Well, so you will be about 60 miles from Cartersville.
Okay.
So Gainesville is here.
Oh, Cartersville. Right.
And then Cartersville is over this way, going more toward the western part of the state. But it's worth a side trip. It's not that hard. I mean, you can do
I
it
would
in a
very
day.
much like to do that. I've heard so much about it. That would be well worthwhile.
And while you're there, you can see some of their workshops that they have. I think it'd be nice if you were part of their roster.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it would be great. And then in Newnan, Georgia, there's Three Heart Farm. They do classes. They have Meredith has actual paintings by Wyeth in her home. And I was,
oh my goodness.
Oh man, she showed me some of those, and I thought, oh man, this is incredible.
That's amazing.
I'm seeing some of his work in a non-museum setting.
That's extraordinary. Wow.
And she had Mark English, and anyway, I'm getting carried away.
I was never much of an art collector until I started painting, and now I love buying other people's work.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah, it is. It is. I get enjoyment from looking at it every single day. Yeah.
See, I have a small collection, and I look at it. So I get two things out of it. First is inspiration, get a pep in my step. And the second is I get an art lesson every time I walk by it. So it's kind of nice to be able to see how other people speak through their paints. Yeah. So what's next for you as a painter?
Well, this year is a little bit, like I said, of an experiment, because it's only been 3 months since I stopped. I guess 3 since I stopped working at my medical job. So I'm trying to understand what the right balance is of teaching, painting. I have a few new galleries this year, 3 new galleries this year. So I've been really busy making work. And so just trying to decide how to, balance everything. I love plein air painting. I'll be doing the Parsboro International Plein Air painting competition in June up in Nova Scotia. I've never been before, so I'm very excited to do that. And so and a couple of other smaller plein air events. But so just trying to understand how to use my time. I'd like to expand gallery representation to places that don't get really cold and nasty in the winter. Most of my galleries are in New England, and I'd certainly love to be in Florida or Charleston or Santa Fe or California, just because the galleries that I'm in are very much seasonal. Some of them even would close in parts of the winter. So, I mean, that's sort of a goal. But yeah, I feel like I'm going to give myself this year to kind of do what's happening and then sort of reassess and figure out if I have the balance right. I feel so blessed. I feel so fortunate to be doing what I love. And I'll tell you a secret. Artists in general are way nicer than doctors. Like, I have met
No.
so many nice people. I have made such amazing friendships since painting, and so life just seems really rosy, like really, really good.
You know
Couldn't be
the
happier.
well, that's wonderful to hear. I have met a lot of nice doctors though, so
I have too. I have too. I'm
I've,
just saying in general. Yeah.
yeah, no, I get you. I think it takes a special amount of heart to create beautiful art. There's more to it than just the precision of an incision. I should have been a rapper.
Oh, there you go.
Sorry, that was really corny,
I
but
like that.
but so adjusting. I guess I should have thought about that. You've only made this transition just a few months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is some adjustment to that. I'm still adjusting after all these years of giving up my business. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it is a challenge,
Yeah.
but it's a rewarding one. I'm telling you, you're in for the ride of your life. It's a good one.
I haven't been bored yet. So there's just plenty to keep me going, and no lack of inspiration. So
Debbie, there's so much more we could talk about, so I'll save it. I'll save that for another time because we'll have to talk again. And,
that would be lovely.
Yeah, but I'm starstruck. That's why I'm at a loss of word. I'm a little bit starstruck here because
Well,
I've
me
been
too,
following
because
it.
I just love your the way that you can guide a conversation in such a skillful way with the people that you talk to. It's just like I said, I was sad when the podcast went on pause, and I was delighted when it started back up again. So, yeah, thanks for being here, and thanks for having me.
I am so grateful that Debbie Mueller took the time to talk with me on the Artful Painter today. You want to find out more about her art and all the things that she's doing as a full-time artist now? I suggest that you go to her website. Her website can be found at debbiemuellerart.com. Let me spell that as Debbie, Debbie, and then Mueller is spelled Mueller, art.com. Of course, I'll have a link in the show notes. And I also encourage you to go to her Instagram account. Her Instagram is at Debbie Mueller Art. And there you can see a lot of fine examples of the paintings that she has done. You may recall her talking about the Strata easel challenge that she does from time to time. You'll see her progress on her Instagram account as well. So Debbie, thank you. I can't wait to hear what you accomplish in the year ahead and the years ahead. I want to thank everyone for joining me right here in the Artful Painter studio. I can't wait to see you again in the next edition of the Artful Painter.
And we're getting a picture on the TV.